Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Monsters Den. I am your host, Pete Pardo. My co-host for this evening, once again, is Mr. Chris Alo. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Pete. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me.
So, as you can see, Chris is in his lair with all the fun stuff.
Oh, sure. Getting ready to watch nothing but bad monster movies.
So tonight's theme for the Monsters Den is kind of like a play on 80s supernatural horror films. So we got, some supernatural, a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of horror comedy, lots of gore, lots of cheese, and we just picked three of our favorites from the 80s that kind of fall into that kind of theme a little bit. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. One of my films actually was released in late '79, but I'm still gonna throw it in here because you know what? I think I probably saw it in the theaters in early '90, and the sequels were in the '80s or in the '80s, in 1980. I mean, not 1990. And I think it qualifies, right? And it kind of fits in line with the rest of these films, anyway. So I'm going to have Chris. We've each picked three films, so we got a triple feature for you here from each of us. So I'm going to have Chris kick us off with his first choice.
Okay, the first one, I'm going to go with the best one for sure. Best goes first, and this one is an all-time classic. I would definitely argue one of the greatest horror movies of all time, and it's Lucio Fulci's The Beyond, which originally came out in theaters in the U.S. under the title The Seven Doors of Death in 1983. And unlike the other Fulci movies, like House by the Cemetery and Zombie and Gates of Hell, this movie got cut to get an R rating. And so a lot of the good stuff was cut. The distributors did a real shitty job of marketing the movie. And unlike Zombie and Gates of Hell, it was not a big hit in the U.S. But years later, thanks to Grindhouse releasing, it did get re-released in theaters in its full uncut version, and it is a masterpiece for sure. I mean, I saw it in the theater, I think 4 or 5 times, and I ran it as part of my Hudson Horror show, and it is amazing. This is the Blu-ray. I also have the from the I don't know when. This is the DVD tin edition. I have other versions too, but it's amazing. If you haven't seen it, it's basically the ultimate supernatural horror flick. Catriona McCall, who starred in Gates of Hell and House by the Cemetery, she inherits a hotel in Louisiana, and it's haunted, for lack of a better term. There's ghosts and demons and zombies and killer spiders, and not a whole lot of it makes sense. There's some kind of painting. And there's the book of Ivan, which was written 4,000 years ago and has something to do with the plot. Nobody really knows. Even Fulci kind of said, I wasn't so worried about the plot. The whole movie is a nightmare. And it really is. I mean, it is just fantastic. Every time I watch it, I see something new. And it is very frightening. It's not comical in any way. I mean, this is horror. It pulls no punches. Everybody gets killed. It's great. I mean, I would put it definitely in one of my top 10 favorite horror films of all time, and it's amazing. One of the times even I saw it, the last time I saw it in the theater, they had Fabio Frizzi, the composer, who did an amazing job on the score. He came over from Italy with a band. He had a live band in the theater, and he played the whole score over the movie, and it was just awesome. So it's a great movie. There's, like I said, there's zombies and demons, and it's just awesome. I just love it. I watch it at least once a year.
I actually haven't seen that film in quite a few years, and I need to rewatch it. Okay. I definitely need to. Yeah. It is a great film, but it's probably, I don't think I've seen it in like a decade. Believe it or not.
Wow.
That's a long time.
Yeah, that's a long time. It holds up. I mean, if you're in the mood for something horrific, this is it. Something that doesn't pull any punches. Yeah, definitely. And the Blu-ray looks great. I'm waiting for them to put out the 4K disc because they've already started doing the other Fulci movies, and I'll definitely buy it again. I must have bought it, I don't know, 4 or 5 times this movie already.
Don't you
But
love
it's
it,
not
man?
collectible. You know how it is.
That's always been the interesting thing about being a film collector. It's like, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have bought like VHS, multiple DVDs, you know, the original
Sure.
version, special edition, Blu-ray edition. Now you got the 4K. It's like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think I counted for a buddy asked me, Lucio Fulci's Zombie. I think I counted 9 times I bought it. All the different formats.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. It's terrible. It's terrible being a collector.
And do you still have all 9 of them?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I can't get those. I can't get rid of.
Chris, the king of multiple copies, Alo, right?
It's terrible. It's the worst. Half the time, I still can't find stuff.
Well, that is a problem, right?
Yeah,
You gotta be like me. All 9 versions have to be on the same place on the shelf together, right?
That's true. I do admire your organization.
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of practice at it. So, all right. My first choice here today. This is my 1979 pick, so I'm going to squeeze it in here in the 80s. Phantasm, a Don Coscarelli film. I still remember like the first time I saw this. Chris and I were talking about some of these films the other day. And when I was, in 1979, I was 13 years old. I either saw it then or I saw it early in 1980, so I was 14 or whatever. But I remember thinking this was like the wildest movie I had ever seen. And I know the soundtrack is pretty chilling. It's a weird flick. You got this big, the tall man who's like this evil undertaker. You got this annoying little kid. You got his cool like older brother who's hooking up with the chicks in the movie and all this kind of stuff. You got the crazy ball with the spikes in it drill into the guy's head. You got the cool kind of rock and roll guy with the mullet and what have you, selling ice cream and all this kind of stuff. It's a weird cast. It's a weird film. I watching it today, I don't even know, the film makes less sense today than I think it made back in 1979. Basically this the tall man is like this evil undertaker. He's actually from another planet or something like that, and he's turning like dead people into these like little midget ghoulish goblin creatures or whatever. A lot of the film is like, it's like what you don't see, right? You get all these weird noises and creature noises and lots of shadows, and the little kid who's quite frankly really annoying still to this day, just like running around. It's like, oh, but I saw the creature, I heard the creature, nobody believes him, all this kind of stuff. And then they wind up going, him and his older brother and the other buddy who plays guitar, delivers the ice cream, right? They're trying to stop this tall man from doing what he's doing, and they know where he lives. They're hanging around the house. Well, it's a really weird movie. It's got some good gore in it. Like I said, the soundtrack is kind of creepy. It's definitely creepy in spots, but it's funny, watching it today after loving it all throughout my childhood and the 80s and 90s and whatnot. It's got really bad acting. Yeah. Like a cult classic film, the acting is like really bad in this movie, and I think I dislike the actor who plays the little kid even more today than I did back then, because I hated him back then. Today I'm kind of like, oh, he's so annoying. But the tall man's a great character. Obviously, he did a couple films in this series. Like I said, the kill scenes are really good, and it's got this weird quality to it that I think has endeared itself to a lot of people over the years. So it's still a fun watch. I don't today think it's as great as I thought it was back when I was 13, but I still think it deserves its place in kind of like horror, history as being one of the greats from this era. But I also wonder too if maybe the second film was even a little bit better than the first.
Yeah, I think I prefer the second one, but there's certainly the first couple and the franchise definitely has its made its mark, if nothing else, at least for being so unique. I mean, and it's 6 movies, right? And the whole thing's never really fully explained.
Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's really no other franchise like it. It's very different.
Right,
I think for that alone, you got to give it a lot of credit. Because I remember when this came out, so I remember going to see this in the theaters, and I was like, what in the hell just happened there? This was great, but like Can't tell you I understand it. I again watched it again the other day for like, the millionth time. And I'm like, I got done watching. I'm like, you know what? I still don't really understand what this film is all about, but maybe that's the appeal of it. I don't know. So, but good stuff.
Yeah,
Nonetheless.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, back to you.
All right, now we're going from good to bad. This movie is a fun one. It came out in the 80s, I think 82. It's also known as The Witch. I never saw it until like 2005 when I saw it. 2005, 6, something like that. I saw it at an all night, 24-hour horror movie marathon, and I was blown away. It's completely ridiculous, but it's a lot of fun. It's unintentionally funny. There's some great gore in it. There's no nudity. I don't know why, but it's Superstition is the name of the movie. This is the bootleg DVD that I got like 10 years ago, and this is the new Blu-ray edition from Shout Factory, which has some interviews and stuff. But it's definitely a movie worth buying twice because it's so fun. It's basically a haunted house movie. Long story short, a priest inherits this creepy old mansion that's literally built out of concrete. And there's, you find out later that a witch was put to death on the property. So he rents it to a family. And of course, all sorts of bad things happen to the family. And the witch resurfaces. And it's a lot of fun. Again, this is another movie that pulls no punches when it comes to killing kids and teenagers. There's some great kills, a lot of really unintentionally funny moments, some decent special effects. And again, this was another movie that was released unrated, so the gore is pretty good, and it's just a fun flick. I mean, every time I see it, I laugh. It's definitely worth picking up.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
It's good. It's like Phantasm and like all these movies we're talking about, it has that 70s 80s charm to it. That if it was released today, maybe I wouldn't be so attached to it. But just watching it now, it brings me back to that era, like you said, Pete, of being a kid and watching these movies. Except for me, this was a new discovery because I watched it when I was old. But it felt, because it's from that era, I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, oh, why did I never rent this one as a kid? Or, I was just like, I barely remember it. I sort of remember the poster, but I think it did come out on VHS, but it didn't get a big release. But it's absolutely worthwhile. If you're looking for, cheesy, supernatural 80s horror, that's still fun and worthwhile with the kills and stuff. I would track down Superstition.
And what year was that again?
1982, I believe.
Okay.
Also known as The Witch. Yep, 1982. And it's real short, 85 minutes. It's just boom, boom, boom. Opens up with a couple of awesome kills. I mean, they even blow up a guy's head in a microwave for some reason. I mean, it's so ridiculous. There's just, it very much reminds me of a movie. I almost picked this one. It's also another ridiculous 80s supernatural horror flick, and that's The Boogeyman, which I love because, again, that is batshit crazy, just like Superstition. If you look,
I haven't seen The Boogeyman in a long time. Yeah, that's
fun. That's fun. And again, that's another flick that plays so well with an audience. We never got to run The Boogeyman or Superstition with Hudson Horror, but knock on wood, never say never in the future.
There you go. All right. We have arrived for me at 1985 from Mr. Stuart Gordon, director, who directed a lot of pretty cool films around this era. I'm talking about the very first Re-Animator, starring none other than Jeffrey Combs and a certain lovely lady named Barbara Crampton. Okay. which I know most people who like this movie like her performance in it even better. Kind of a weird, I mean, it's based on H.P. Lovecraft, all right, the Herbert West Re-Animator stories. But also, you got to give a lot of credit here to the whole kind of like Frankenstein monster type of thing. I mean, the whole storyline is based on he's like a scientist, a kind of crazy scientist, comes up with a serum to reanimate dead corpses, right? Bring them back to life. So again, a little bit of Mary Shelley there as well as Lovecraft, but of course Gordon loved to tap into the H.P. Lovecraft well of storylines in all of his films. He did that many, many times, and it's got this is like one of those films that I think they tried to mix weird offbeat comedy with really, really gory horror, and I think it works really well. At times it's silly as all hell. At times the gore is just like over the top. Some great scenes in here, and Jeffrey's performance is just like so over the top. Like he's just like a complete lunatic. He tries to play the straight man, and at the end you really know just how like unhinged he is. And the whole like last half hour of this film is just out of control, right? I mean, all the crazy stuff going on. The whole scene with the other dude's head that comes to life, right? And his body is walking around. And
yeah, it's amazing.
It's unbelievable, and yeah, it's one of those films I've watched it over and over and over again throughout my life, and it spawned two pretty good sequels. I will say, the second one's decent. I think the first is still.
I was going to say second one has its moments. I hated the third one where they're in jail. What the hell was that one even called? Sean, you remember what that was called?
Beyond Re-Animator, right?
Beyond Re-Animator, yeah. Oh, yeah. I really did not like that one.
Second one is Bride of Re-Animator.
Bride of Re-Animator, yeah.
But it's just for the time. So this was 85. So for the time, there's actually some really good gore effects in this movie, I think. And it's pretty witty. It's pretty silly at times, but I think that's kind of what they were going for. And Jeffrey Combs actually became like a cult favorite among horror fans, and he would kind of show up obviously in the sequels, but he would just pop in here and there and everywhere for a while there. He was showing up in all sorts of movies, but
oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. This is the Millennium Edition THX DVD. I bought this a while ago. It's got like tons of bonus stuff. I mean, I think it's got 2 or 3 discs in here, and just fun, over the top craziness, lots of Lovecraftian themes and all that kind of stuff, and a classic of this time period.
Absolutely. We ran that at Hudson Horror I don't know, 5-6 years ago, maybe longer. It still plays unbelievable with an audience. I mean, it's you nailed it, Pete. I mean, it's gory and funny at the same time, without being too funny or without trying too hard, which is difficult when you're doing horror. But yeah, Stuart Gordon just nailed it.
You know what I think too? It's like it's funny, not in a way like haha, like joke funny, but it's more like shocking funny. Like some of the stuff that they do in this film is so like over the top wild that you laugh because it's like, oh my God, I can't believe he just went there and did that, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Sometimes you can like laugh with like horrific delight at films. It's not like a comedy, but it's just like you just like it's just so good and so over the top and so out there what they're doing that you gotta kind of laugh. It's like a laugh of joy and a laugh of shock all at the same time.
Like Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
You're laughing at the amount of gore on screen, and absolutely.
I mean, that's a great example, Evil Dead 2. It's just, I mean, there's just shit in that movie that's like, wow, they actually went there. It's like, you got to laugh, right? It's just like.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, your next choice.
Well, my last pick, I don't know if you've seen this one, Pete. It's pretty obscure, and I got to admit, it's fucking terrible. But I love it. As a lover of terrible cinema, this is awful. This came out, the movie is called Demonoid. It's got an amazing poster. Like, this should totally be like an album cover for a new wave of British heavy metal band from like the 80s. And I watched it again last night, and it's fucking awful. But I love it. This came out on Blu-ray from the great folks at Vinegar Syndrome probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And they had a very rare 35 millimeter film print of it. They let us run it. And man, it's terrible, but in such a good way. Long story short, it is my all-time favorite supernatural horror movie about a possessed hand. This one outdoes Evil Dead 2 because the whole movie is the hand. And a husband and wife team they're digging for oil, and they come across a sealed box. And of course, there's the curse of the ancient native peoples. Don't mess with it. They open it up, and it's a bunch of dirt. But then the dirt reconfigures itself into the worst, most fake-looking rubber hand you have ever seen, and it goes to terrorize them for the next 90 minutes.
Of course.
Samantha Egger from The Brood stars in it, and she's just got a weird-ass look to begin with. Stuart Whitman from Night of the Lepus, who has the best eyebrows in the history of cinema. He plays a priest in this, and it's just awful. I mean, when you're watching the movie, the characters are just doing the most ridiculous, unrealistic things, but it's just funny. It's so funny because it's just so ridiculous and such a terrible movie. But again, if you like bad movies, I can't recommend this one any higher. And my favorite part, I love the poster because there's this awesome demon on the poster. And the best part is you don't really see the demon looks exactly like this because they have a cardboard cutout of the demon, and you see him in silhouette, and they light it so that you could just see this cardboard cutout. I mean, it's and they keep flashing to it over and over again. And I almost, when I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, so did the producers decide like, oh, well, that's a really cool poster, but we never put that monster in the movie, so let's just do a couple quick reshoots with a cardboard cutout and a strobe light, and no one will know the difference.
Because it's a great substitute, right? I mean, yeah.
That'll win the audience over. I mean, it's just batshit crazy, totally ridiculous. And I love movies like this. The disc is awesome. There's actually 2 different versions on here, and trailers and a bunch of other junk. It's a terrible movie, but if you're looking for an awful movie, Demonoid will fill that hole for you.
That sounds pretty bad. That sounds like Blood Freak bad, but except Blood Freak was in the 70s.
Oh, the chicken movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a terrible movie. I have definitely seen Demonoid more than Blood Freak. Yeah, Blood Freak is a bad one, that's for sure.
That's really bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I probably should check that one
Yeah.
out. I do like bad horror films every now and then. Yeah, there's a certain charm about them, So,
absolutely, especially from the 80s.
Yeah. I will say my next choice is not a cinematic masterpiece by any means. It is kind of fun. Another one of those films I went to see in the theaters back in the day. What are we looking at here? 1988. So I'm talking Kevin Tenney's Night of the Demons.
Nice.
So of course, made Leanna Quigley kind of a household name for a little while, right?
Oh yeah, she steals the show in that movie.
She does, and terrible acting notwithstanding. So basically this is the unrated version I hear, which features additional gore and violence, right? So basically the story here is you got a bunch of high school kids who want to go out and party, have a good time, but of course they don't really know where to go. So they wind up breaking into this old, like, ancient funeral parlor that's been empty for, a while, whatever. So they're there, they're drinking, they're hanging out, they're making out, all this kind of stuff. They decide to do a little seance, right? So what they actually do during the seance is they conjure up this demon who then goes into like the bodies of each of the kids one by one, right? and it's just kind of interesting to see how every time the demon is in one of the bodies of one of these kids, they actually kind of change their form, and they go try to kill the other ones, all this kind of stuff. There's a great scene with Miss Quigley who and again, whether they were real or not, or whether they were prosthetics, I don't know what the whole deal was, but she like opens up her top. She's in possession of the demon. She takes her lipstick and she actually pushes the lipstick through her nipple, right? Which is like one of the most infamous scenes in the whole film, right?
Absolutely. So crazy.
It's crazy, yeah. And the acting is terrible. It's the plot is barely there, but you know what? There's some great makeup with the various demons in the film as each of the kids get taken over. The gore is pretty good. It's pretty, if you want lots of violence and gore, I think it definitely hits on all the marks there. It's not going to win any awards for storyline or anything like that, but you know what? It was the late 80s. I think they were making lots of kind of films like this, and this was a fairly popular one there for a while. And I dig it. I think it's fun. I rewatched all these over the last week. And some of these I hadn't seen in a little while, but this was pretty fun. This was pretty fun.
Absolutely, I know exactly like you said. Not a cinematic masterpiece, but definitely fun. I remember I saw it in the theater in the Cortland Town Center in Mohegan Lake, New York, in '88, and I remember the gimmick they had, which I don't remember any other movie ever doing this. Was if you bought a ticket to see Night of the Demons, you got a full-size theatrical US one-sheet poster for free. So I went with a buddy and two girls, and we all went, the four of us, and I'm the only one that liked the movie. Plus, I was the only one that was a movie poster. So I walked out of there with four copies of the poster. But I'll never forget that. I was like, wow, that's worth the price of admission, getting the poster.
They didn't do that when I saw it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember where I saw this. If it was up here in the Hudson Valley, or I don't remember exactly when that came out. Like what time of the year that came out.
I'm going to say
September.
Fall. Okay, yeah, I was going to say fall of '88. I was going to say
fall of '88. So I was in college. So I was in New Paltz. So, actually, no, I had already graduated. I graduated in May. So no, I was living in Long Island at the time. That's probably why cheap asses in Long Island, right? They didn't have they weren't giving out the posters. No, but I definitely did not get a poster, because I probably would still have that if I did. Do you still have it somewhere?
I have one of them. I don't have all of them, but I definitely have one of them in the archives.
There you go. Pretty cool. And I got to say, I always love this kind of like the cover here, which I think was also the movie poster, right?
Yeah, that was it. And I think the tagline was something about Angela's having a party and you're invited or something. And they made a few of those. And I can't, maybe my buddy Sean remembers, but one of the sequels, like Night of the Demons 2 or 3, has like Morbid Angel and Deicide on the soundtrack. It's the second one? Yeah, Sean said it was the second one. And it's got, that's the one with Eddie Furlong? Oh, all right. Sean said Eddie Furlong's in the remake, which I think I saw that one too. But yeah, so yeah, Morbid Angel, I definitely remember them on the soundtrack, which is fitting for a movie, one of these movies.
I think so, absolutely. Some good death metal acts, right? Yeah, certainly. So there you have it, everybody. You got 6 recommendations of some pretty crazy 80s supernatural horror films. Maybe some of them are kind of bad by today's standards, but if you grew up on this kind of stuff, can't help but enjoy it, right? And it was actually kind of good going down back memory lane on some of these, because I hadn't watched any of these 3 in a while, because I own so many horror flicks, and there's only so much time to rewatch. You're always like watching new stuff and discovering new stuff, and rewatching your absolute favorites. So, but yeah, I mean, the 80s was full of these types of films, and there's so many more we could have chosen. It's just the tip of the iceberg. So maybe we'll do another one. You never know. So curious to see everybody who's watching what some of your 80s favorites are on the more supernatural side of things, and put them in the comments below. Otherwise, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Stay tuned for another Monsters Den. We'll have more Monsters Den episodes coming up, because you know what? Even though Halloween season is over, horror season's not over ever. So, Chris, you got any ideas for future Monsters Den episodes we could do together?
I'm sure we can come up with something. I'm sure we can come up with something.
Sounds good. We will do that. We will do that. So everybody stay tuned for more Monsters Den. And for Chris Alo, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good night, everybody.